Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have another great guest and great friend. I'm so grateful to have met Justin. I actually heard him first on a podcast that we were both on, Brad Lee's podcast, Dropping Bombs. He came on that a little bit after I had been on there, and I've been listening to that for a long time, heard him, and then showed up at an event that I was speaking at, and he was there also speaking at it. So it's just a really cool connection. You're going to love his accent. Love just listening to him talk. He could put you to sleep. I have a funny story about that actually, but not with him. But I was talking to somebody. We were went on a business trip. Business partner asked me this question, and apparently he was really tired. So I start answering the question. He's out in like 30 seconds. I was like, the heck, man, talking you to sleep. Anyway, super funny. But Justin Tidd, absolute killer in his field, in his industry, unlimited solutions, focused on helping you really optimize your life and live the best life you can through health management and becoming, just taking your life seriously from your physical perspective, your health, and then that makes the rest of your life easier. So I'm grateful. Justin's taking the time. It took us, 3 months to get you on here, I feel like?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Schedules.
We've been going back and forth. He's super busy. I'm busy. But we definitely wanted to make sure this happened. So Justin, go ahead and tell us your background. Like, how were you raised? How did you get up to where you are? And why are you so passionate about this mission now?
Sure. Yeah. First off, Sam, thanks for having me on, inviting me on. It's been a pleasure knowing you and being friends with you from where we've become, here in the last few months. But, we all have our own story, and that story is also our unique brand. And it's interesting, of course I'm covered with tattoos, and a few years back I actually got a copyright tattoo, the copyright logo, because, to me, it's no one else can be me. And we have our own unique story. So, being copywritten, it was kind of a cool thing for me coming up with the story that I guess I'm about to share with you. And bro, I'll go deep with you with it. And I've told a few times how it's really interesting. But I grew up blue collar. My parents they worked 2 jobs. My mom and my dad. So my brother and I, my grandma watched us some. We were on our own a lot. But my parents just hard workers. We didn't have much. What I always say is, we didn't have enough for food stamps, but we didn't have, we weren't poor enough for food stamps, but we didn't have enough to really live, back then candy bars were $0.25. And, if we were at the grocery store, I couldn't even get a candy bar when I was a kid. And so that was kind of the life, I guess, to give you a perspective of growing up. But I always saw my parents work extremely hard, super proud of them for giving me a lot of that work ethic. And, when I was growing up, I was about 12 years old, and my uncle, he was a VP of a pharmaceutical company. Saw him once a year. And really, he was that one person in our family that did something different. And when I was 12, he flew my brother and I to Atlanta, Georgia. First time I ever flown, get to Georgia, see their house, Porsche, Cadillacs, Corvettes, boats, really big house. And I was just really wow, this is my family. And so I think early on at 12, that really, it pushed me into the light of really knowing this was my family. This is something that is achievable. I can have this. And at that point, I really wanted to change and really wanted to figure out how to do that. So I was always geared up, always grew up athletic, played sports, many different sports. And so as I grew out, high school and into college, life really, I learned how to grow up very quickly because I always knew I was going to be something. I don't know if that's something that people feel or know, but like I did, I knew that. I knew I was going to do something good. And so at that point in time, all I knew was, well, to get a good job, you have to have a bachelor's degree. So I went and got a bachelor's degree. And then I was like, well, at that point in time, early 2000s, well, everybody has bachelor's degrees. So how can I differentiate myself from that? So I got a master's degree in business. So that was educationally what pushed me in that direction. I never really had an entrepreneur in the family to show me what an entrepreneur path was. And so basically, as I was in college, getting out of college, I started working for a manufacturing company. And I knew at that point was I just wanted an opportunity. Somebody give me an opportunity, I want to be really good. Sacrifice, do whatever it's going to take. What we always see the sayings is, champions do what competitors won't. And it's that mindset of just I just need the opportunity. So I worked in that company every 2 years in outside sales. Every 2 years I got promoted all the way up to a chief sales officer and a board member. So traveling internationally, selling equipment globally. So that happened in that process of just, brick by brick, working hard, working my way up through a company. And so that was when I started my success of changing and adding the legacy that I was going to set for my children, because I broke the mold, getting into more of a corporate world, getting into more, making six plus figures. In my, I was in my late 20s. But what's interesting about the process, like that sounds great. Okay. Guy comes in, works his way from the ground up in a company. Okay. Doesn't happen a lot anymore. Somebody be with a company that long. But during this process, when I was 22 years old, I was on a sales call. I was out in Indiana, and I was traveling back. I stayed at my aunt's house in Lexington because it was really late at night. So at 4 a.m., I get a phone call that my daughter, she was about 3 years old, and her mother was killed in a car accident. So, at 22 years old, as I just began my job into sales and trying to climb this ladder, now I just found out that I was a single father. So, of course, I drive home early in the morning, so I get the phone call. So as I'm trying to advance and do this, I'm learning how to be not only a dad for the first time, but a single dad out of the gate too. So nobody teaches you how to do those things. That's just one of those things that you learn, you figure it out. And so 2 years later, I ended up getting married, and I had my son, and that relationship didn't really work out. So really about 18 months later, I was back into okay, now I'm a single dad with 2 kids, and I'm still traveling 30 weeks out of the year, trying to build this life, this legacy of trying to obtain wealth that I never, that was my goal growing up. And so ultimately, just to fast forward through some of that a little bit, so I was divorced twice, have 3 children, and that gets me to where I am today. Recently married, my wife has a child. We've been together 7 years. That was one of the learning lessons of being really young and falling into relationships, and then children coming out of that and learning how to become a father, become wealthy. But in that process, I really lost myself. I was out with customers, entertaining clients, building relationships, letting my body go, drinking way too much, just eating food wherever, eating good food, eating bad food. Like I was just, I ate at some of the best steakhouses in the world, but my health was really, really declining. And in the process, I lost myself. I didn't really like myself, or what I always say is I like myself. I didn't love myself, if that makes sense. And so around 30 years old, this is about 11 years ago, I made a decision to get my health right. And when I did that, that was what I needed. That was the pivotal moment when I learned to love myself. And I didn't really understand like getting my health right, eating clean, working out, what that was going to bring me. Because I did it like most people do out of vanity. I did it because I wanted to look good. I was like, oh, I had the dad bod. It didn't look good. How can I, fill this void that I think I was missing because I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. So at that point in time, that's when I got really heavy into health and fitness, get myself right. A few years later, got into bodybuilding. And then, that's when I truly loved myself 100%, was comfortable in my own skin. And all that also led to me being a better father, a better friend, a better husband. Because, I look back at those failed marriages and, I was the common denominator for that. And I understand that. And I had a lot of demons I was dealing with, in that process. So now knowing this is where I am, this is who I am, and I'm a really great person for other people because I love myself. And that was huge for me in that process. And that ultimately has led me into start my own coaching business 7 years ago. I've changed over 250 people's lives. So I'm super excited about that. And it's just, it's been a really great transformation for me all around, honestly, spiritually, financially, personally. And so, that's kind of my story up until now, in a way.
Awesome.
That helps.
Well, no, it does. And I love that. I'm curious. I'm going to go back quite a bit in some of these stories here because there's a lot to go there. But I want to just say, when I was actually going through the branding process for my own kind of company and what I wanted to stand for, Fuel Your Legacy, and I've revisited this branding process multiple times. Like, maybe this other thing would be better. Maybe this other name would be better. Maybe there's something deeper. But it always comes back down to, for me, fueling your legacy. And the reason is your legacy is what, like the end goal, what you want to happen. But there has to be something to fuel that. And that fuel can be motivation, inspiration. It could be money. Like, you could have all the best dreams in the world, but if you don't have anything to actually put it into action, then it doesn't matter. Right? You could have all the best knowledge about health. And if you don't have the right fuel, the right food to put in your body, it doesn't matter how much you know. Like there's so many things that fuel matters. So the fuel for your legacy is where I think I want to spend most of my time. The legacy is going to happen whether you like it or not. You're going to be remembered some way or another. And even if you aren't remembered, then that's how you're remembered. You're not remembered, right? So it's like, people say, oh, I don't want to make a decision. By you not making a decision right now, that's a decision. You're deciding not to make a decision. For you not taking care of your health, you're deciding to be unhealthy. By choosing not to be healthy, you're deciding to be unhealthy, right? Or unfocused on your health, whatever it is, however you want to say it. But there's a decision. Every time you're making a decision, there are forks in the road. You don't get to choose both very often, if ever. You're making a choice in the road and you're going one way or the other. And you're either actively creating or you're allowing chaos to exist and atrophy to happen. And so that's why I love Fuel Your Legacy. But one of the things my coach taught me was when you're thinking of this, it has to be something that somebody would want to get tattooed on their body. Like that's how you determine if like this is you enough. And I actually believe that right now, I don't know that I would ever get a tattoo because I don't think I'm a tattoo type person personally. Not that I have against, I think they're beautiful. I just don't want to ever do that to myself. But that's something that I feel comfortable representing. And I'll often leave the house and my pants have it on them, my shirt has it on, my hat has it on it. Like all of my clothes are representing this brand because I just feel so strongly about this idea and identity of branding your legacy. So when it comes down to copywriting, I think that's really cool that you copyrighted like, hey, I am me. There's no other Justin Tidd out there.
Yeah.
No other life experience, nothing. And what if we all treated our life with that much reverence and understanding that there's nobody else who's been through what you've been through?
That's right. Yeah, and owning that story, right? That's the biggest thing. Is some people, it's not being a victim. It's understanding you went through this. How'd you get through it? Learn from it. We all have wins and losses. It's just a matter of how we deal with the losses. Does that become? You can think of it as a loss and that you're a loser and a failure, or you can think of it as you're winning because you're learning. And I think the moment someone can understand a loss as a win, just by understanding you're learning something. Now, it's what you do with it after that. You learn from it, and then can you adapt? And that's the moment when someone can look at their life and the losses become wins, and you can be proud of, man, I had a crazy year. I learned a lot. I won over here. I shouldn't have done some of those things. Never do them again. But then I lost here. Next time I do that, I'll be better at that.
Right. And I think everybody goes through these things, but it really comes down to what are you learning from? One of the things that I've gained most out of my life, as far as one of my best questions that I ask myself, is what am I supposed to gain from this? And then how can I help somebody else with this experience? I went through this experience. How can I bless somebody else? And the reason I ask about how can I help somebody else is because when you have to teach something to somebody else, you learn it 10 times better yourself. And so if you're just like, okay, well, how can this benefit me? You're going to only see about a little piece of the lesson. Once you realize, hey, how do I transfer this lesson to somebody else? Then you have to make it even simpler. You have to deduce the lesson even more universal. And once it gets down to that universal truth, then you can see how it applies not just to your relationships, but to your finances, to your family, to your faith, to your fitness. It applies everywhere. But if it's still just in the event or the facts of the experience, like, oh, I learned never to do X, Y, Z again. Well, that's great. But what's the principle about why that even became a thing? What's the underlying thing of how do we level the playing field across all areas of our life and apply it by principles? And this is just a funny story about principles. I don't know if some people won't find it funny, but I thought it's funny. And it's part of my life, so whatever. But when we got married, my wife and I, we had two different perspectives on holidays and birthdays, primarily birthdays, where a birthday for her, it was like always a big celebration. All the family came over. Everybody said it was a big thing. For us, I didn't really feel like families were a big deal in my childhood. And not by anybody's fault, but just they weren't as big of a deal for me. And so when we were married, the first birthday, I was out doing summer sales, so I wanted to take a day off. So I made it this big deal for her, not because it was her birthday, because I wanted a day off, right? That's the truth. Selfish as it might be, I still made it a good day for her. Well, then the next year, her birthday was on like a Tuesday or something. So I was like, yeah, let's go out to dinner the Saturday before, and then I'm working, Well, I get home. She was not happy that I was working on her birthday or whatever. She didn't get the happy birthday text or a kiss or whatever. I was like, what's the big deal? And so then we continued to have this conversation for probably 2 or 3 hours of how she wanted me to celebrate her birthday because that's what somebody who loves her would do. Right? And so she's using this emotional argument of why I should do something. And the way my mind works is emotional arguments don't work on the principle level. On the principle level, you can't use an emotional argument because then what if my emotion says I don't want to celebrate birthdays? Then you should allow me not to celebrate birthdays if you love me. So who loves who?
Yeah.
It's like if we're doing the emotional side, it doesn't work. So after about an hour and a half, 2 hours of having this conversation, she's crying. I'm probably not crying. I'm probably just an annoying husband at this point. But we're having this conversation. Finally, she's like, well, Sam, at work, because she's now lived with me for 2 years almost. She says, well, at work, when somebody asked you to go buy a book and says, hey, this is going to improve your life if you do this one thing, how quick do you take action? I was like, immediately, right? I believe that immediate massive action is the way you get the best change and the most production.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, okay, so based on the principle of how you live your life, then if you see something that could improve a situation and somebody who you love and respect says this would improve the situation, you take immediate massive action, right? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, so this is what needs to happen. I was like, great, birthdays are the best thing ever, right? Because, and it sounds silly, and it sounds like, Sam, you're just being annoying. But what's really important is that that's a foundation of Charlie and I's relationship, that we don't emotionally manipulate somebody into doing something. We identify, hey, what's a value that you hold dear? And then let's identify if what we both want applies to that value and that principle. And so we can still live principle-based lives and not emotionally manipulate each other into doing something just for us or because we want them to or whatever. That crap doesn't happen in our life because the emotional manipulation isn't there. It either makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And we have that mutual respect for each other. I think that just this concept of really getting clear about who you are and what you want to do, and then having that respectful conversation could really make a big difference. I'm curious here where you said, I mean, I love this phrase. I've never heard it before. You were not poor enough for food stamps, but you didn't have enough to live on. I mean, that's a great quote right there. Talk a little bit more about that. How many siblings did you grow up with? And what was that like, kind of living as a latchkey kid with your parents gone and you just kind of having to figure out life?
Yeah, so my brother was 3 years older than me. So we were relatively pretty close. And I was forced to almost grow up a little quicker even then because, if I was to hang out with him, I couldn't be annoying. And so it was, well, if I got to hang out with him, I had to be cool because he was older, whether it's his friends or just him. And the rule was the moment I was annoying, I was not allowed to hang out with him. Well, I didn't like that. So I wanted to hang out with him as much as possible. Fortunately, we both like sports. We grew up like a few miles out of the city, so kind of in the country, not really. But we had a massive backyard. We had at first we had one basketball hoop, and then eventually we got two. But okay, it sounded like full court, but it was like a mini full court, and our court was grass. So with a dirt circle in the middle. So we got real good at dribbling on, knots and things like that. So if we got to play on concrete, it was like heaven. So we ran around, ran on the riverbanks, did all the things up in the woods we weren't supposed to do. We used to hop trains. We used to remove the wood on the bridges the trains would go under and climb under and hang out, let the trains ride over top of us. We kind of grew up in the woods and nature. So it was a lot of fun. We definitely did stuff we shouldn't have done. We had some BB guns eventually, pellet guns, and we used to put our winter coats on in the summer and go outside and play war. And we would hunt each other down and, shoot each other with pellets. Yes.
Dude, I did that too. So a question about that. Do you think that, because you're a parent, how many kids do you have now? 3?
3 plus 1. So yeah, 4. I think 4. Yeah.
Was it hard for you when your kids were growing up to allow that, like knowing all the stupid things you did and that you survived? Is it hard for you to let your kids go do the same stupid things and just like allow them to be kids? Or is it like, yeah, no, I know what I got up to. If you get up to half of what I got up to, not happening. Right. How did you navigate that? Because most of your kids are older now. I'm like old, but they're teenagers or older. So,
well, what changed was when I was a kid growing up, and we had 4 TV channels, and those 4 TV channels only worked off the antenna on the roof. So if the wind would come or storm, Dad would have to go up and move the antenna. Somebody would be in the front yard, oh, right there, stop, no, go back. And he's up there trying to get the TV to work. And so we didn't have technology. We didn't have a computer. We didn't have phones. And so we had no distractions. So we had to find something to do outside. For my children, we have to try to manage technology, and it's really difficult, right? Because it's everywhere, and so we more would like, or we try to push them outside. We try to get them to go do things. We try to, put them in sports and activities and encourage them to go out with their friends. Almost like where I wish they would get out and maybe get into some of their own trouble riding bikes somewhere and riding through the woods, but they don't, or they didn't. I'll say that. For me, it was the question you're asking is when it became difficult. It becomes difficult around 16, because around 16 they start driving, and now it opens up a whole lot of other choices, bad decisions, good decisions, speeding. When I was a kid and all that, we didn't have apps that tracked your speed. So now I literally get to see my kids driving way too fast on the interstate, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, what if I just didn't see that? Because my parents didn't see that, right? And I, of course, did a lot of that. I drove muscle cars and sports cars, and I drove way too fast. And I was out late and doing donuts and church parking lots and, all those things. But so that's probably harder for me as they're getting older is to see some of that, and, leaving their phones, sneaking out to their friends. And, now I got one in college. So seeing her try to learn and go through some of the bad decisions that I went through in college. And you want to, as a parent, you want to save them. You want to say, don't do that. It's a bad idea. And I've recently just came to an agreement with myself. My oldest is 19, and she's just got to figure it out. She's at the point where she's got to figure it out. And I can give her all the advice. I say, okay, here's your situation. Here's the best solution. Good luck. And honestly, and I have to mean it. And our relationship's actually gotten like 10 times better solely by me just saying, okay, it's your life. You got it.
Sure.
And so that's tough. That's tough because I'm just like, I'm like, you're going to, in 5 years, some of those things you're going to say you wasted time, but sometimes they have to learn.
If you don't do it, then you don't have that experience. And then what if that 5 years of wasted time now doesn't ever get experienced, and she doesn't learn it was a waste of time. So then she ends up wasting 20 or 30 years doing stuff. It's so, anyways, parenting is one of the most interesting things. I love asking other parents who are farther down the track than I am, because I'm admittedly right in the beginning. I've got a 7-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old little girl. And, it's like, how much do I parent versus how much do I just like, dude, you figure it out. Something that I just like thought of while you were talking is I just need to ask the question more, hey, what did you learn from that? What did you learn from that? Let them explain what they're learning, so that if that's all they get, they walk into college, they walk into high school, whatever, and they know that whatever the heck they're doing, dad's going to ask them, hey, what did you learn from that? If that's what they get, then that's a good thing. That's a good question to always be, hey, what am I learning from this? Because if I'm not learning anything, that's a bigger problem. But yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah. We called it 5 second, right? You had 5 seconds to run, and then we were shooting you with a BB gun or something, and we never wore padded clothes. We probably should have. We never wore goggles. Probably should have. It's like all the things that you do as a kid, just stupid stuff. Stupid stuff. And then it's just like, now we're adults and we think, oh, we don't want our kids to do that. It's crazy. I want to bring go for it.
I'll tell you something right quick that I started implementing. I read an article one time, and it had something to do with like an FBI psychologist and how you can relate it to your children. And instead of being like, you have to clean your room before you go anywhere, you have to do this, you have to do that. The question is, well, how will you be able to go to Sarah's house if your room looks like that? And it makes them think differently. And they're like, oh, okay. Instead of saying your room has to be clean before you go. I know it sounds crazy, but I started using it, and how are you going to be able to do this if this? And I'm like, it keeps the tension down.
That's good, because that's what we need. My little 7-year-old boy is learning to put his sheets on his bed, and he's like, I can't do it. I'm like, dude, you can do it. I've seen you do it multiple times. You're going to do it. There's no question about that. It's just which side of the spanking do you want to be on? Do you want to do it before or after?
Yep.
Probably not the best, but it is what it is. I don't know how to be a parent, so we're figuring it out. But I think this other thing that you brought up was really fascinating, and I'm curious about when you went and saw your uncle, who's a VP, first person you really see that was blood family that really become something different than what you were used to.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that your parents knew that your uncle was wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. They had now being an adult, you can understand the difference of comprehension of knowing your brother's freaking rich versus you being poor, and your kid having that comprehension. Your kid is kind of probably still like enamored by it, like, oh, this is so cool. They don't comprehend all of the life choices that led one person to one place and the other person to another place, and having maybe the regret, resentment, whatever. So I'm just curious, you go to this experience, you feel a certain way. Wow, this can be done. I can do it. Coming back, was there ever any feeling some sort of way like, why didn't our parents have this? Why didn't this happen? And was there ever any conversation among you and your parents to try and explain those differences?
I don't recall one, to be honest with you. I'm sure I probably thought of it, and my brother and I probably maybe discussed or talked about it. But to be honest with you, I don't feel like it. I just felt like that was our life. They were doing the best they could, and for whatever the reason, and I don't know, maybe since it was only like one person in my family that I saw that had this life, because like they didn't have other friends that were wealthy. They didn't, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like now I had friends growing up that their families were wealthy, and I would spend the night at their houses or something like that. And I always be like, whoa, wow. You go to your friend's house, it's nice. And I'm like, you got a satellite? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
rich
things like that. So
rich now.
Yeah. So I think I was perpetually going through some of that already, that I had just already accepted it, that I just knew where we were and had accepted, that's what the life.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Just I talked to some people that experienced that differently. I was just curious for you. So another thing, I'm watching this Alexander the Great show on Netflix that just came out, which, it's got its own things in it that's a little weird. But one of the things I thought was fascinating that they highlighted, whether this is true or not, I don't know. I'm not saying this is true. I'm watching a documentary that somebody's trying to feed us whatever they want us to see. Understand that. But this lesson was really fascinating. So they're talking about as Alexander comes to power, and his mom, as soon as he comes to power, his mom goes down to the little dungeon area, the witchcraft place, and mixes up some medicine, but probably some hallucinogenic whatevers, and say, hey, and she says, we're going to go meet your real father. That guy that just got killed upstairs, who he believed was his dad the whole time. She said, hey, we're going to go meet your real father. And she, at that stage in his life, that pivotal moment, says, hey, you are actually the son of Zeus, right? You're actually a god. You actually have been anointed with this power. Like, you are supposed to be the person, right? On the flip side, and he was of Macedon, this tiny little area when it started. On the other side was Persia, and King Darius had just come to throne within a few months of each other. They both did. But Darius, in their culture and in their upbringing, in the Babylonian culture, was that they served the gods. The gods were on a different level. They served the gods, and the gods may or may not be happy with what was going on. And part of their lot in life was to try and serve the gods and make the gods happy.
Mm-hmm.
So what I learned from this is the juxtaposition. What do you believe you were meant to do? What do you believe your identity is? Right? If you come out of that experience going to your uncle's house believing, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. I'm destined for greatness. I'm destined to become financially successful. I'm destined to achieve all that I want out of life. Versus somebody else who thinks, maybe I can. I'm supposed to. It's for the right person, right? All of these different things. The person who believes he's a god and is going to go claim what's his acts differently than the person who is trying to please the gods, because the gods could be anything. The gods could be social media. The gods could be the people around you. The gods could be your parents. They could be your own impressions of what you think somebody thinks about you. They could be the laws of the land. The gods could be anything in that scenario. So do you believe you are a god, or do you believe that you're there to serve the gods? And I'm not talking necessarily in deity perspectives here, but what do you believe about yourself and what's your identity? And that changes the certainty on the battlefield. That changes the certainty in how you wake up and do something in the morning. That changes when it comes to your health. Do you believe that you have a healthy body if you treated it right? That your body, by the way, if you're watching this, Justin and I don't look anything alike, by the way. Justin's waist is skinnier than mine. His shoulders are probably a few inches wider than mine. His back's ripped. He's just absolutely crushed. And I'm not that way. Now, does that mean that I'm probably in this scenario, I'll be honest, probably more in the serve the God health side. And you were at a point where you were improving your health out of vanity, just like, well, I just want to look better. I'm just tired of looking the way I do. I want to look better. And it isn't until later that you start saying, no, like my body actually is better. It feels better. I am better when I have this optimal health. Talk about that transition when you're helping clients go from, hey, I really should do this. I'm supposed to do this. I hope this is what I'm supposed to do, to where it becomes intuitive of who they are to have peak health.
Okay. I'll go back just a little bit, because, as I was kind of coming through that and into who I was, I believe there's three things that motivate us. It's power, it's money, and it's image. That's the three things that I believe motivates, and it can be shared. It can be only one. I remember through the process that, money drove me hard. I was super motivated by money, but then there's also a point where you get enough money that it's like, there's the motivation's missing, maybe a little bit. But what happened was my motivation turned into power. And then, I wanted to be in control of things. That's when I started my own business. And yeah, the money was there, but now the power was super motivating for me. And I remember going through the process of years and saying, image will never motivate me. I remember specifically being cold, hard, dead, thought image would not motivate me whatsoever. Well, now it does to an extent. And the reason it does is because, I have to market myself. I have to keep myself in a certain shape. I have to market my clients. I have to do things that I need image through marketing, people on social media, on the internet, wherever, to see that. So now image is becoming more motivating to me as I go. So it's really weird to see that spectrum happen to get me there.
When you say image, just ask this question here. So when you say image is motivating, is it even what I heard you say is what I don't think what you're saying. So this is what I want to clarify. You're not motivated by the image based on like the vanity of I want to look good, as much as I understand that my image is part of my brand. My image is part of helping other people. It's part of this. So still, from what I heard, image isn't necessarily a motivator. It's an acknowledgement that you must maintain an image to have the desired results in your business that you want, rather than being the end goal of the result.
Well, and in that process, though, right, I have to be more visible. So, think celebrity status if you want to think ultimate image. Now, I don't want to be there by any means, but I have to be known to be to open up the market space for more consumers. So I have to be known. So my image, to me, the more people see me, the more opportunity I have to help more people. Now, at the end of the day, from a coaching standpoint, the reason I do what I do is because I want to help as many people as I can. And so the more I'm known, the more I can help. Mm-hmm. And I do believe I'm, a fitness coach, nutrition coach. I do, without a doubt, believe I'm one of the best out there. I do care more. I've hired my own coaches. I do care as much as possible. My customer service is on the front end. I try to do other things with labs and blood work to make sure someone's healthy, not just going hardcore fitness nutrition and putting themselves maybe in a bad position with their health. So there's other things that I do that I pay attention to and try to stay on top of that diversifies me from just a typical fitness coach that's going to give you a plan, check in, I'll update it, kick it off, and move on. I actually care. I really care a lot. So
yeah. Well, and I think that goes back to something else that you said, was champions do what competitors won't. And I think that there's a line in there where in the process, you start competing with finances, you start competing with other people. And then the question is, at what point does the competition fade? Because you're either on par and you're right there, or you're leading everybody in your circle and you're like, yeah, the competition is gone. Well, then what keeps you doing the champion level things after the competition is gone? Well, same thing in health. Once the competition's gone, what's going to keep you doing the healthy thing that a champion does? And I think that one big thing that separates a competitor versus a champion is champions see farther in and they see contribution. So rather than thinking of just like becoming the best themselves, a lot of the champions are thinking not just, can I become the best? Yeah, that's important. But how can I pave the way for somebody else to become better? How can I take my elite status that I was able to elevate myself above everybody and then pass that down? You see it with Michael Jordan. You see it with Kobe Bryant. You see this mentality that they actually start saying, how do we create a movement? How do we create change long-term in whatever industry? Even Taylor Swift, she's all the buzz right now, right? But she set a standard in music that she's refused to back down from. And she's changed a lot of the music industry because of her rules that she was going to abide by, who was going to buy her music, where people could hear her music, even if it potentially meant less sales, which in the end it didn't. But even if it did hurt her, quote unquote, she was going to stand by her guns and do the champion level thing of how can we change the industry? Yes, I have some clout. Yes, I'm moving into influence. But rather than just going with the flow and just being a competitor and start competing with all the other people, I think she was thinking, how can I be an industry leader? How can I change, tweak the industry where I pull myself out as the leader of the industry? And everybody has to do that themselves, even to the point of exercising. I used to go to the gym to exercise with my wife, and we'd put the kids in the daycare at the gym. Right. And about 6 months ago, we decided, no, we're not doing that anymore. We canceled our gym membership. And now we exercise in front of our TV. Right. We do dance videos, exercise, whatever. And it's not uncommon. I mean, all three of our kids, they're all watching it happen. Sometimes they're complaining, why do you have to exercise today? Right. But they all watch it happen. But often they're actually starting to do a few of the moves with us. They're starting to exercise with us. And I was thinking, I don't think I ever saw my parents exercise.
Yeah, I know I didn't.
11 kids. I don't think I ever saw my parents exercise. And that's not like a good or bad thing. It's just like, I actually don't think I ever saw it happen. They maybe went for a walk occasionally. But now thinking about it, I was like, man, what is this going to do for our kids if they grow up the first 8 years of their life seeing their parents regularly exercising every morning without fail, except for Sunday. We don't exercise on Sunday, but every morning we're exercising 30 minutes. We go for a jog. We're doing this. What is that going to teach them, even if they don't know they're being taught it?
It teaches them a lot, honestly, because I've had the fortune now to watch my kids as they've grown up and get older. And not only exercises, they're watching what you eat. And our generation, dude, our generation and then our parents, unless there was some profound somebody over that was into nutrition or sports, like eating healthy and understanding it was never passed down to our generation. It really wasn't at a very large scale. And that's why so many people in our generation are overweight or don't know how to cook or don't understand a meal plan. Majority of my clients are 25 to 45 years old. And they have no clue how to set up a nutrition plan or what to eat, how to eat consistently. They were never taught that. So if they were never taught that, they sure as hell can't teach their kids. And so watching my kids grow up now, my oldest is 19. She understands how to read macros in the back of a box and count calories and know, okay, well, if I eat that, I got to do this much cardio to offset these bad decisions. And I know I need to get enough protein in during the day. Same thing with our kids. They bounce in and out. Like, we don't require meal plans,
sure,
but they bounce in and out of wanting to do a meal plan or wanting to drop 10 pounds or, so we go back and forth with them, but they're understanding that to where, My youngest is 13. She's a great distance runner, really, really great cross country and distance track and field runner. But she's just like, just tell me what I got to eat. She's super picky, like loves sugar and everything she shouldn't eat. But she's like on race days and training days, like, okay, what do I have to eat? Okay, I'll eat that. She eats it, doesn't complain a bit about it. And so, as they get older, they take all that knowledge and information. And all of my kids go to the gym, all 4 of them. They all work out either on their own. The 13-year-old, we do take her to the gym. The boys work out by themselves. One of them drives, so he'll drive the other. They work out by themselves, and our 19-year-old goes to the gym 3-4 days a week at college. So they watch, and we never forced any of them into the gym. We never forced them. We never said you have to do this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the main thing is what type of example are you setting? And that's that's another great question to ask yourself. What type of example am I setting for my kids? And maybe you don't have kids. Maybe you're listening to this, like, I don't have any kids, never plan on having kids. You're still setting an example for the people around you. Part of leaving a legacy in my mind is becoming a leader. And a lot of becoming a leader is not anything more than acknowledging that you already are a leader. Whether you like it or not, you are setting an example, and people around you are following or adjusting their life based off of what they see you do or not do. Whether you like it or not, it's something we can't control. That's something that's happening. Whether we like it or not, they're either deciding to be more like us or less like us based on what they perceive the outcome of our actions are, or what they like. And so if that's the case, then what type of example are you setting for the other people around you? And if you ask yourself that question and then ask yourself, are you okay with it? What type of example are you okay with it? So the first question we've really highlighted in this is the question of how can I benefit from this? How could I teach this to somebody else? What am I gaining from this experience? All of those 3 questions, whichever one rings true to you, ask that question to yourself. But then ask yourself the other question of what example am I setting for others? I know there's a lot of things that I've been through in my life that I focus, almost maybe to a detriment sometimes, because I don't know. It's like mourning or going through hard things is the example that it's okay to process your emotions. Is that a better example than to say, look, some things you just need to get on with life? That's also a good example. Like there's pros and cons to every way of being. And you just have to ask yourself, are you okay with the way that you're being?
Yep. That's right.
And it's just different for everybody. Man, we ran out of time here. I have more questions. We'll have to schedule another one in like 6 months.
Yeah, for sure.
No, but if somebody wanted to work with you, because the thing I would say about Justin is he really does care. Met a lot of people in this industry. There's a lot of people who want to sell you a program. They just want to, and if you're not into winning on that program, they're not going to. One of the things about Justin is he wants to work with you, but he doesn't really want a bunch of clients who just want to buy something from him. He wants the people who are absolutely committed. He doesn't need your money. He has a great job. He has a great business growing. He doesn't need your money. He would rather you get the change than get your money. Now, there's obviously an exchange of value there, and the people who pay attention often, but he actually does care. So if you are looking for somebody who actually cares to help you grow and change your body, your mindset, the way you view yourself. Just a funny example. I don't know, it was probably 3 years ago. I had always been fairly thin. I say fairly thin, around 150 pounds or so. And I remember going down the stairs of my office, and I had creeped up to probably around 165, 170. And the front of my body had a bunch of belly fat that was bouncing around. And I was like, this is weird. This is like not part of me. I don't identify with all this stuff. This is the strangest thing, And so what you view yourself as is ultimately what you're going to become. The neuroplasticity of your body demands that. And so one of the biggest things that Justin can help you with is not just the physical aspect, but transforming what's inside your head and how you view yourself and how you care about yourself. And that's the biggest change that has to happen. You start thinking a different way, you're going to start making different choices, and the end result will be that way. And what's more important is when you get to that ideal body, maybe you know the statistics, Justin, I'm curious, how many people lose weight and then regain it?
Oh, I don't know that statistic. It is big, because what will happen is people will go through programs and then they go, okay, I did it, check mark, move on. But they didn't change their lifestyle. They didn't change those habits that they had literally been working on and creating. And so I've seen, I've probably, I will say 2 to 3 times, I'll take a client through a transformation. And over that 2 to 3 times, that's when the habits stick. And then they're forever on their own. They understand how to eat and do all those things. But there's a lot of people that revert back just for simply because they did a good job, they're happy, but then they're like, okay, I'm gonna go celebrate and do my thing. Next thing you know, they went right back to all those eating habits.
Well, a lot of it too is their identity never changes. They never see themselves as a skinny. I don't want to say skinny, but like as a thin, fit, like healthy person. They still see themselves as a fat person or somebody who's unhealthy, who's getting healthy. Well, once you complete the getting healthy process, then you never changed your mindset to being a thin, healthy person or a fit, healthy person. You were always somebody getting healthier, or you were always somebody who was losing the weight rather than somebody who was a healthy person. And this goes back to the Alexander thing. Are you somebody who's serving the God of losing weight, or are you somebody, or how you look or whatever it is, or are you somebody who identifies as a fit specimen of a human being at your peak performance level, and you're going to not stop until that is accomplished, and there's never ever a time when it gets accomplished. So it's, how do you see yourself? I see it in finances. People are like, well, I'm going to pay off a bunch of debt. So they build this neural pathway of being a debt payer, and they pay off debt, tens of thousands of dollars of debt in a year. And they're like, I accomplished my goal. And then where do they end up? Right back in debt, because they never built the identity of a fiscally responsible, economically responsible individual. They never built the identity of a long-term saver. They never built the identity of an investor. They never built the identity of somebody who's financially responsible. They always built the identity of, I'm paying off debt. I'm paying off debt. Debt's bad. And then they go right back into it because they accomplished their goal, and then they go back to it.
Yeah. I will say on the fitness side of it, the mindset shift is anywhere from 3 to 5 years before you start feeling like you're that person, instead of being like, I'm this fat person. I'm this fat person, when you're not really, but you're mentally, you still think that, you still feel it. You remember all those years. And the same thing, I'm naturally a skinny guy. I was 150 pounds out of high school. So, it took me personally, it was around 4 years for me to start coming to terms with like, I'm not this skinny guy anymore. Like I'm 232 pounds, like 8% body fat and 10% body fat. Like
jacked.
You know what I mean? I'm not skinny, but mentally it took a long time to like change that shift. And yeah, so 3 to 5 years, I've seen it take people to come to terms with themselves that they are really who they are. Like, no, you're actually lean, mean, and look great. You really are.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, where do they reach you if they want to get in touch with you or be coached by you, mentored by you? Where do they contact you at?
Instagram's always the best, Tid_Justin. Or you can go to the website, justintid.com. That's 2 Ds, JUSTINTIDD. But yeah, that's the 2 best ways.
Okay, awesome. Well, hopefully you guys do that and go and at least go follow him. He's constantly giving good content through his Instagram. And that's one of the other things. Like when you're going to go ask these people for help, they give out so much free content. Show some earnest, show some like action on the front end. You don't always have to just go pay somebody to get free the value out of it. They want you to pay them if you're going to be committed to it. But if you just want to find out what he's about and learn more about him and maybe start taking action so you can see some of the own personal transformations, then go start there. Go start following him on Instagram, follow him on YouTube, follow him on these places, go to his website, and then just start engaging. And that's where it's all going to start for you in that transformation. So thank you so much. Thank you, Justin, for making this happen. It's a long time coming, but I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Sam.
And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.